Hello, today I'm going to be painting this little landscape with the stream and the mountains, and the main focus are the pinky purpley flowers that are all the way through the fields. So I start off, as usual with all of my paintings, I start off with big blocky shapes. I'm trying to make these nice shapes, so it means varied sizes and different angles, different colors, that kind of thing. This is quite important. I'll show you the reference. I don't really follow the reference much. It's just an idea of where things to go. You know, it's very important. The reference, obviously, I couldn't really paint this, but I don't really follow it as such. It's just a guide. So as you see there, the stream there, the most important thing is that it's just a nice shape. And that just means it's varied and, you know, has different angles and is not symmetrical and things like that. So make sure you have a nice shape when you put all these base layers down, because they're going to really determine if your painting works or not. So as always, I'm using, this is an iPad Procreate if you're not familiar with it. And I'm using the select tool, freehand and color fill to do nearly everything. I'll use a brush now and again when it gets really small. I use a technical pen from the inking section in Procreate. It's just built in. Doesn't really matter which brush it is, because it's I only use it when it's very small. So when brushes get very small, it doesn't really matter which one it is. The only thing that really matters is that it's a hard edge brush, whereas in I don't want soft edges in this kind of style. It's kind of graphic-y vector style. I don't want too many soft edges. So if I do soft edges, I'll do them on purpose, and I'll use the smudge tool. Or you'll see me using Gaussian blur now and again, which kind of does the same thing. So don't get too hung up on the brushes, especially for this style. It's not really needed, and you can do it all with just the simple built-in brushes anyway. So I'm building up some of the details now. So I got the bases in. And I'm using the eraser here to add some detail to the snow section. It is the same brush. You might know or not that you can use brushes for the eraser too. So again, this is just a technical pen, but any brush will do really. So, but one thing is it's nice to erase detail rather than put it in. For some reason, we seem to be better with erasing rather than adding. And then I add an effect down, up the top, sorry, not down. I put in using the sky color, and then I use Gaussian blur to smooth it out. So Gaussian blur basically smooths anything out. And then you kind of get this nice misty effect over the mountains, and it blends it in quite nice. Now these big mountains don't really have too much detail because they're in shadow, but you need a little bit to give an idea that there's something there. So these pinky flowers are throughout the painting, but it's important to get the perspective right. So as further you go away, the more kind of flat they get. So in the total distance, they're basically just going to be a line, and then they'll get thicker or elongated vertically as we come forward. And you want to change the color a little bit, not massively, just a little bit, just to give variation. Again, I don't try and paint these flowers yet. I'll paint them a little bit as they get close, but when they're really far away into the distance, they just bunch up like they're just one big blob. So especially for this style anyway, which is very simplified, I don't really want to concern myself with trying to paint them, especially at this distance. Although this is fairly close, but it kind of works. If you wanted to paint them individually, it would take a very long time. I'm not even sure I'd want to do that, really. But I guess this is when you'd be using different brushes, and you'd have to really have a look for natural type brushes, which is, you know, if you like to do that kind of thing, that's great. But I think it's slightly unnecessary to try and paint every detail of a painting, and I don't find it that much fun trying to make things look exactly like the reference. So I like to interpret the reference and just make something slightly different, and to the way I like to paint. And I like to paint fast, so this painting took me about just under 30 minutes, and I got the video down to about 15. That's because I sped up some of the parts, and I chopped out bits where I'm just sitting there thinking. So quite often, every couple of minutes, I'll be thinking about what the next step is, and I'm just sitting there, and I'm pretty sure you don't want to watch that, so I've cut that out. But it's obviously very important, because I'm thinking of where the color should go, and looking at the reference and deciding what I need to do. So I'm looking at the reference quite a lot to help me decide what's next, but then I don't really use the reference to copy it. I'm just looking for the information, like how colorful is it, how dark or light it is, etc. And I'm doing that on the little river section here, and I'm using Gaussian blur and the smudge tool to make the river. It's not really a river, I don't know what it is. It's just like a big puddle or something, really. It look kind of rubbish right now, like all paintings do, halfway, so they still look kind of rubbish. It'll only come together in the last few minutes, last 5 minutes, last 10 minutes, depends how long the painting is. Something you kind of just got to get used to is your painting will look crap for quite a long time, and you just got to know it comes together at the end. Well, sometimes it doesn't come together at the end, as I'm sure you know, and sometimes it doesn't for me either. But I trust that if I keep going, I can find solutions to the problem. So that's generally what I'm doing. Like, so if you look at the river right now, it doesn't really blend in properly, and I know that, but what I do is I go to other parts of the painting and kind of solve the problems I know the solution to. So it's like, okay, it's not blending in well now. Okay, let's add some more detail around it, so it's not so so the lines are not so obvious. So that'll start blending it in, and I'll do some more stuff on the river. But I'm basically following the same process over and over, and put it in big shapes and then put in highlights over the top, and still using that select freehand and sometimes the technical pen, but quite often you'll see the selection tool, just because it's so much quicker. And what's so nice about it is you get the hard edges, where even when you use a hard brush, sometimes that doesn't happen so well. But you'll see me using that technical brush now and again. So I got to start dealing with these flowers up the front, and they're fundamental to this painting. First I need a good base to put them on, and so generally I just mess up the underneath. Just, you need to make sure it's still quite dark though, and because otherwise the flowers won't pop out. So I'm just messing it up here, and then I'll darken it in a minute, and because it's too light, and I think I darken it again after that point anyway. But really what I'm trying to do is just convey that there's lots of bush and stalks and grass and all this kind of stuff. But basically it's mostly important that it's dark, so when I put the color on top they will pop out. If you don't do that, the purple will just blend in with the bottom, which is fine when it's in the distance or something, but when it's close up we want these things to pop out. And in hindsight, as I watch this now, I painted it earlier, I probably could have gone darker again. I do darken it towards the end a little bit, but I could have probably gone much darker. In the reference I don't think it's that dark either, but the darker it is, kind of the more they pop. But because they're so bright anyway, it's probably not such a big deal, to be honest. And Again, I don't really paint these flowers. It's all about shapes for me with this style. It's about the shapes and the perspective of these little flowers. You know, you're kind of looking at them, but they're facing towards the left a little bit. So you kind of got to keep your shapes in mind when you got to decide which angle they're coming from, and that's quite important. So you want them to face into the painting. So with my style here, because the shapes are kind of fundamental to the painting, it's very important that they kind of face the right way, not the wrong way. That wouldn't be good, and they're in the right perspective. So what I mean about that is you can see the individual flowers now, and you can see like they have a top and a bottom, whereas the distance flowers are just all flat because we can't really see them. So hopefully that makes sense. Let me know if it doesn't. But basically it's about getting the shapes right. And here's what I said, I was darkening the background. I'm doing it now. Not that dark. I used the opacity slider on the layer just to drop it a little bit, but it looks pretty good now. And so now I'm coming towards the part where, you know, all my shapes are in. I got quite a lot of highlights. So usually then I stick some layers up the top of my layer stack, right up the top. And then I'll paint in just things that I think are going to help or remove. I remove by painting most of the time. It's just easier than figuring out which layer it's on. Although I think I am actually erasing at this point. But I still have a problem with that stream. It's not really blending in. And I'm not really sure why. But I got it in the back of my mind that it doesn't look quite right. And but I'll fiddle around with the other sections until I get an idea of why. And so I'll just add a few details. You can go nuts with the details as long as it's up front. And I always like to add these little grass bits. It always looks quite good. But I'll go back to the river in a minute. And what I haven't really done is put in enough shadows from the banks. So when you have a stream or a river or something like that, the river obviously sits in a base and then comes out to the edge, and then you have the banks. You always have the banks, and they, unless the sun's in a weird spot and it's super bright, but that doesn't really happen, you'll have shadows cast into the water where the bank stops the sun. And now I finally realized after all this time that I need to push these shadows down. And so that's what I'm doing here. I'm re-putting the shadow color down and then using the smudge tool to push it back down. So it looks like it's in the water, because you need to blur it a little bit where the water hits. Now the water starts to look like it's settled there properly rather than just a big splodge. And so it's looking pretty good now, and that's about it. So if you found it useful, give me a sub and a thumbs up, and I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching.